I want to know where you stand on this, Wilds. Because I think he deserves credit for the things he's awesome at, tangible and intangible. And I think that is okay to be being done simultaneous to us being honest about the things he's not awesome at. So I think Jalen Hurts is incredibly tough. And in a not just in a fuzzy way, in a real, tangible way. Plays through injury, suffered an injury in the divisional round that I thought might really limit him in the I thought would really limit him in the conference championship game. Played one of his best games of the year. I think he is clearly the best tush-push quarterback ever. You know what I mean? You're laughing, but no, but
the one that does it.
But
we just saw Josh Allen.
That's why I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because we just saw a game that maybe the result hinged on this other quarterback who is more physically imposing than Jalen, can't squat as much as him, but way bigger than him, couldn't do it. And it has become a devastating feature of their offense. He's also really good running, like quarterback power runs, in a way that you would worry he's going to miss time with injury. I know he got the concussion, but that's still relatively rare. I think, and an adult in the room as, not young, but young-ish quarterback. All that's true. Where I then get frustrated, and not frustrated, but where I then push back is all of that can be true, and it can also be true what Greg said yesterday. And he's also the only part of their offense you worry about. Like, I think all of those things are true. I also think that when you talk about the Philadelphia Eagles losing football games, it's like, hey, if they're going to lose, what do you think is going to happen? The answer to me is typically last year, the quarterback made a lot of mistakes, and this year it hasn't happened. It would be, man, they get in a shootout and the quarterback can't hang. Like that's those are both true, and I think you sometimes feel like that's me stealing credit from him. I'm totally good with giving him credit for all the things he's awesome at. I'm not cool with adding things he's not awesome at just because the team wins.
Okay. So am I. But yet, you don't do that for any of the other quarterbacks. That's the difference. Do you take away the credit from Matthew Stafford for his lack of mobility? Or Joe Burrow? No. Patrick Mahomes, in the beginning of this season, the first 7-8 games, whatever it was not taking care of the ball at all. Was averaging over an interception per game. Did you take that away from him? Did you knock him for that? No. And then again, Patrick Mahomes is another perfect example. They were winning games, even with him not playing great. Clearly not playing great. The defense was playing awesome. Coaching we know is awesome. And yet, we wanted to give all the credit. All of it. To Patrick Mahomes. That's what does not make sense. And it's and then again, that's why I said Stafford, Burrow. It's not just Mahomes. We're not making this into a whole bowl Mahomes, and that's why don't come to the comments where Mahomes won Super Bowls. Just stop with that nonsense. We can bring up other quarterbacks and have it nothing to do with Super Bowls and who's the GOAT and who's not. It's nonsense. We're just using examples. We're just using specific examples to point out inconsistencies in logic. That's why. And Mahomes is just the gold standard example of it. People still fail to accept that as a truth. And it just sets them off in the mind. Patrick Mahomes has won MVPs and this and that. That's not the conversation. It's not the conversation. So again, save those comments. Because it's not the conversation. Pointing out inconsistencies in logic. And inconsistent rules that we apply for some quarterbacks and not others. Baker Mayfield is reckless with the ball. He absolutely is. He led the league in turnover-worthy plays. And yet, does Nick call him out for this? Does Nick pull him down for that? No, he does not. He does not. So if we really want to go through these quarterbacks with a fine-tooth comb, then let's do it. I'm all for it. I am all for it, but do it for every single quarterback. Do it for every single quarterback. Baker Mayfield, who we said that Nick kept saying is a top 10 quarterback, top 5, I forget where he officially landed on him. 16 interceptions. And no, it has nothing to do with some of the injuries that this team faced. Nothing to do with it. Bad throws are bad throws. Bad decisions are bad decisions. Matthew Stafford, 25 turnover-worthy plays. Baker Mayfield, 24. Again, I'm using those quarterbacks as an example because we know that's, Nick likes them. So again, take away credit from those quarterbacks. And again, we can explain some of those turnovers. Well, Matthew Stafford, he's in a lot of shootouts. He's got to push the ball down the field, et cetera, et cetera. Again, that's why I'm not trying to make it binary. I'm not trying to use these stats as proof Matthew Stafford's not that good. And I think Stafford's, special. But my point is like, okay, well, we can point that out, though. I do think Baker Mayfield is legitimately reckless and tries to do too much. He thinks he's better than he is, so it puts him in a difficult situation. Like Matthew Stafford will have a similar number of interceptions or turnover-worthy plays, but they're coming for two completely different reasons, which is why you can't just look at the pure stats. But in a lot of ways, that's what they're doing with Jalen Hurts. But now with Jalen Hurts, we're talking about his weaknesses, his deficits. And I want to give credit for some of this stuff, but I don't want to give him credit for the other stuff just because they win. And it's like, how does that make sense? How does that make sense? I mean, we talk about the postseason. And now postseason, that's why you knock Lamar, etc. Then here's Hurts. Hurts hasn't thrown a postseason interception since his first career playoff game, the wildcard game in Tampa in 2021, where he was picked off twice. That was his first game ever. Drew Brees had the record of 215 passes from 2006 through 2011. And Hurts has now thrown 206 consecutive postseason pass attempts without an interception, the second longest streak in NFL history. Hurts has now gone 7 straight postseason games with at least 20 passes and no interceptions, the longest streak in NFL history. Patrick Mahomes had a 6-game streak, and a handful of quarterbacks went 5 straight games, including Joe Montana, Brees, etc. Hurts has gone 9 straight starts without an interception, which is the 7th longest streak ever recorded. Justin Herbert in 2024, Tom Brady in 2010 shared the record with 9 straight. Hurts' career postseason interception ratio, one for every 117 attempts, is the 6th best in NFL history, minimum 100 attempts. 2 Super Bowls and counting. Hurts on Sunday became only the 5th quarterback to reach 2 Super Bowls before his 27th birthday. The 4 others are Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, and Patrick Mahomes. Seems like pretty good company to me. He's the 22nd quarterback overall to reach 2, but only the 4th NFC quarterback to reach 2 in the last 25 years, following Kurt Warner in 99, 2001, and 2008 Eli Manning in 2007 and 2011, and Russell Wilson 2013 and 2014. With 3 rushing touchdowns on Sunday, Hurts increased his career postseason total to 9, which ties him for 9th most ever. The only player with more rushing touchdowns in their first 8 career playoff games are Terrell Davis with 12 and John Riggins with 10. Hurts also had 3 rushing touchdowns in the Super Bowl. He's only the 2nd player ever with 2 career postseason games with 3 or more touchdowns. Hurts now has 18 total rushing touchdowns this year, which ties the NFL record for quarterbacks, not to mention he missed multiple games with a concussion. He also had 18 in 2022. Josh Allen had 18 last year, including both regular season and postseason. Hurts now has 5 career games with 3 touchdowns. No other quarterback has more than 2. Hurts has a 110.1 passer rating, was his 5th over 100 in 8 career postseason starts. The only players with more games with a 100 passer rating in their first 5 NFL seasons are Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Hurts has a 105 passer rating this postseason, second highest in franchise history, behind Nick Foles, who obviously went on that famous run. Hurts is 65.8, I assume career postseason completion percentage is 12th highest all time. 328 passes, a lot of passes. Hurts threw 4 interceptions in his first 79 passes this year. He's thrown 1 in his last 328 passes since the first play of the second quarter of the Saints game in Week 3. Hurts completed 71% of his passes in the win over the Commanders. His 4th career postseason game, over 70% with no interceptions, minimum 20 attempts. Only 3 quarterbacks in history have had more: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Tom Brady. Hurts has 17 combined touchdowns in his 8 postseason games. 8 passing, 9 rushing. That's the third most combined postseason touchdowns by any player before his 27th birthday. Hurts trails only Patrick Mahomes, 33 in 11 games, and Josh Allen, 19 in 8. So, again, why do we want to take away all of this stuff from Jalen Hurts? Because he's on a great team? So then again, do it for the other players. Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Again, Patrick Mahomes, you guys know Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, boom, boom, boom. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, boom, boom, boom. Matthew Stafford had OBJ, who was still in his relative prime. Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown winner. Sean McVay. Tom Brady, obviously he played for so many different seasons, so, depending on what season we want to use as a reference point. So we can't just say it's because Jalen Hurts is on some great roster. Like, that's not fair. Nick Wright himself the other day said, I think the Chiefs will be more vulnerable when Travis Kelce retires because he's such a massive, he's literally, from Nick's viewpoint, the best playoff performer of all time. Doesn't Patrick Mahomes benefit from that then? So it just doesn't make sense. We can't just then say, well, it's because of Jalen's roster. We just can't. I think Shane Steichen is an awesome coach. He's not doing too well with the Colts because you need to have a good enough quarterback to be able to execute an offense. It's that simple. It's that simple. And again, it's a two-way street because if you have a great coach but a bad coordinator, or a great quarterback but a bad coach or a bad coordinator, then it also doesn't work. These are all mutually two-way street beneficial relationships here. But it just seems like we always want to use it as a way to knock Jalen Hurts. If a quarterback we don't like plays great in the regular season, we say, yeah, but it's the regular season. What about in the playoffs? And then when a quarterback who we don't like plays great in the playoffs, we say, yeah, well, look at his roster. Or, well, it was only a few games. I mean, Nick had a whole segment on Baker Mayfield being an all-time great playoff performer. And was like, oh, he's got 6th best in yards per game and this and that. And he went, and I was like, I can't accept this. And I did a whole deep dive. I showed you highlights of Baker's games and how the vast majority of his yards came from yards after catch. He's throwing like little 5-yard passes that then get taken for like 70 yards. I did a whole deep dive on that because I was like, no. We got to stop this madness. And now Jalen Hurts has played awesome in many games in the playoffs. And we just want to take that away from him. I wish I could break down the Super Bowl, but the NFL is a little specific with that. So I just tell you, go on YouTube on NFL and watch Super Bowl highlights. I think they have their own separate video, like Jalen Hurts highlights. He was not saved by an awesome roster. I think I remember there was like one catch, and I think it was Dallas Goedert that made like a great catch, a great play that definitely obviously helped Jalen Hurts out. Outside of that, it was Jalen Hurts magic. And when we talk about all these touchdowns, they're not all brotherly shoves. And even if they were, as we can see, it's more than just being a beast at quarterback. Watching the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen try to go, get these short yardage gains or 2-point conversions was horrifying. It was actually uncomfortable for me to watch because I'm like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? This is just awful. Not to mention, a lot of those runs, like people just keep thinking that all the touchdowns are these little short yardage gains, and they're not. They're not. Again, even in the playoffs, he ripped off a 40-plus yard touchdown run. Not to mention, you take away all the times that he picks up a third down or a fourth down, where he picks up a first down on third or fourth, where he does it with his legs or throws. You lose, when you just look at stats, you lose the situation itself. It's too hard to remember. When we look at this game, because this just happened recently, the Commanders game, it was like 4th and 3. And it was a big moment in that game. And Jalen Hurts now throws a beautiful pass down the line for AJ. Beautiful, perfect pass that converts the fourth down and, puts them at like the 10-yard line or something like that. Completely changes everything if they don't get that, if he makes a bad throw, etc. The problem is, 2 years from now, heck, even just next year, week 7 by next season, you're not going to remember that. You're not going to remember that moment when they put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands. You don't remember against the Packers when they needed a fourth down conversion and Jalen Hurts threw a perfect bullet to Devontae Smith where only Devontae could catch. It's too hard to remember. You just can't keep all of that in your mind. So that's my issue. That's my issue. And like I always say, whenever I do a Jalen Hurts video, I'm not out here trying to argue that Jalen Hurts is just everything. That Jalen Hurts, no matter where he goes, is going to be leading teams to Super Bowls. I'm not saying that because I don't feel that way about any quarterback, really. And this whole idea that like, oh, well, Jalen Hurts is the biggest weakness. And like I said in my previous video, and I meant to say it so much earlier, because I think it's a great analogy, if I do say so myself. It's like the Eagles team is so stacked with so many awesome pieces. Okay? And it's like being friends with a bunch of billionaires, but you're worth $800 million. So yes, you are technically the poorest person there, but it doesn't mean you need money. It doesn't mean you need money. So they keep trying to use this as a way to bring down Jalen Hurts because Saquon Barkley is a beast? Because A.J. Brown is a beast? Because Devontae is a beast? Like, huh? Not to mention, Saquon Barkley dropped a pass to win a game. So when they say my biggest fear about a team, about, the biggest weakness, I know all these other guys are going to show up. Devontae dropped a pass to win the game against the Commanders. Saquon Barkley dropped a pass to win the game against the Falcons. All players make mistakes. A.J. Brown dropped the ball in the snowstorm. That could have really cost them. That could have really cost them against the Rams. Big time. Just like quarterbacks make mistakes. Jalen Hurts took some sacks. Could have cost them. Jalen Hurts fumbles, throws an interception. Could have cost them. At the end of the day, are you going to trust Devontae, AJ, Saquon, all that more? Yes, because in a lot of ways, their job is easier. Not in a lot of ways, in every way. We know that. We know being a quarterback is the hardest thing to do. So there's more room for them to make mistakes. Patrick Mahomes fumbled against the Buffalo Bills. If the Buffalo Bills end up winning that game, are we saying, Patrick Mahomes is just too careless? That ball to Xavier Worthy easily could have been intercepted. Easily. Some argue that it was, which I'm not getting in that conversation. So again, these narratives that we keep trying to construct, we keep constructing them in ways to just remove Jalen Hurts from actually giving him the credit that he actually does deserve. He is the one that is a major person who runs that offense. Like I said in my other previous video, that Jalen Hurts, in many moments in this game, in the games, throughout the season, he is the one that's making the decision. Do I keep the ball? Do I hand the ball off? Do I keep it and run? Do I keep it and throw? Am I changing the play at the line? Like, what am I doing here? He is running that offense. He is executing it. That's skill. That's credit. Give him credit for that. You want to give him credit for toughness? Toughness and being able to do the brotherly shove. That's it. Really? Really? Lamar Jackson, interception, fumble. Patrick Mahomes, fumble. Matthew Stafford, fumbles, maybe interception, I don't remember. Could have definitely been multiple interceptions, but didn't. That I do remember. Jordan Love, interceptions. I mean, like, all these quarterbacks throw in interceptions. Justin Herbert, like 9 interceptions. Jared Goff, 17 interceptions. I mean, you know, Jalen Hurts, none. And this is the thing that's crazy, because when Nick was talking about Jalen Hurts a couple days ago, when he was trying to call out Jalen Hurts, oh, well, they lost in the Super Bowl, and he fumbled the ball. And it's like, again, Patrick Mahomes has thrown 5 interceptions in 4 Super Bowls. He fumbled the ball there. And if you say, yeah, but they still won, it's like, well, Nick is saying that the Eagles lost because Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball. And if that's what you're saying, then that means the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes won because Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball. Therefore, Patrick Mahomes shouldn't get credit for that Super Bowl. Those are the rules. If you want to keep playing by those rules, then play by those rules. You can't pick and choose when you want to apply the rules when they matter to your argument. That's not how this works. Because then what you're denying the fact is that Jalen Hurts led his team to tie the game up. He marched in for a touchdown and the 2-point conversion. And no, it was not some easy walk-in touchdown. It was brute force. It was Jalen Hurts. So yes, if we want to tell the story about Jalen Hurts, then tell the story. Tell the whole story. And if you're going to use certain parameters when you want to break down Jalen Hurts' level of credit, then do it for all the other quarterbacks. Do it for Patrick Mahomes. Do it for Josh Allen. Do it for Lamar Jackson. Do it for Burrow. Do it for Stafford. Do it for Baker. Do it for Dak Prescott. You fundamentally believe that the Dallas Cowboys had better coaches and a better roster. And yet they did not show up and perform in the playoffs. Whose fault is that then? You want to blame Kellen Moore? Kellen Moore is the same coordinator that he was for the Dallas Cowboys. So we can do this all day, no matter how you want to look at it, no matter how you want to slice it. Jalen Hurts deserves a tremendous amount of credit. He does not deserve to have this extra microscope on him. If, this is what I also always say, if he was in consideration to being the GOAT, and for whatever reason, that was what we were talking about. We were trying to figure out, is Jalen Hurts an all-time great talent? Then yes, 1,000% yes. That's what I always say about when we're talking about Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, etc. Yes, it makes total sense to really zoom in and be like, well, this guy had a really bad defense. Well, this guy had a great defense, but they played awful in the playoffs. Well, this guy had this guy had that, this coach, this coordinator, that coordinator. That makes sense. That fundamentally makes sense to me because we were having a very, very, very zoomed in conversation. But if you're going to keep doing this to Jalen Hurts, you better do it to Dak Prescott. You better do it to Dak Prescott. You never do want to do that, though. You never want to do that. When Dak Prescott gets all these extra numbers in a game that's a blowout, you never want to talk about it. You never want to unpack those numbers. You never do. When Baker Mayfield beats a banged-up, injured, terrible Eagles team in the playoffs and a falling-apart Pittsburgh Steelers where they turned the ball over like 9 times, you just want to use the box score to tell you how great Baker Mayfield is. And you don't want to explain that his numbers are beefed up because of those 2 playoff games, whereas the other playoff games, not so much. Pretty bad. But with Jalen Hurts, you want to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. You want to say, yeah, he played great in the Super Bowl, but they lost, so let's not count that game. Yeah, let's not count the Super Bowl. Sure, because that makes sense. The one thing that we ask all these quarterbacks to be able to perform in is in the biggest moments, aka the Super Bowl. The quarterback does that, and we want to remove that from the equation. And it wouldn't be raining if all the water wasn't falling from the sky. Just bizarre. Which is so hilarious because, like, I've been so critical of Jalen Hurts over the years. I really have been. So it's just like to find myself in this situation where I have to like shake people and be like, will you stop? I don't know. Yeah. This is what we did going into the Packers game. This is what we did going into the Rams game. This is what we did going into the Commanders game. And now this is what we're going to do going into the Super Bowl. Yeah, I got more thoughts, but we'll stop it there. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jalen Hurts? How much credit do you think he deserves for this Super Bowl run? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way. Let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.